All right, we are recording. So the agenda is empty today.
Oh, awesome.
Yes, yes. So what I had started doing is going through the discussion items as
Right.
well as the open PRs to see if there's anything we could do just to make some quick-ish decisions or discussions around these items.
No.
One quick thing in the sheets, it said today was supposed to be about
Sorry, there's
conformity.
been audio issues. Maybe it's just on my side.
Is that for me or for everyone?
I think Chris was saying something, and then it just got completely covered.
Is this better?
Yeah, I can hear you fine, Chris.
Oh, okay. The sheets thing said today was supposed to be about conformance, I thought.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
We haven't updated those. We've just been doing, let's do like 15 minutes on conformance. I think we need to shift all the topics down.
Okay.
Okay, that makes sense.
If you look at the issues on the project board, we also need to kind of make progress on those as well. But we can talk about conformance for about 10, 15 minutes, I think, to just start off to kick off the topic.
Cool. And is anyone on the call able to take some notes just in the agenda? Any volunteers?
Yeah, this is Mark. I can take some notes.
Awesome. Thank you.
So actually, while we have the spreadsheet up and we have to update the website, I think we haven't talked about routes and inclusion delegation. So can we move that to February 13th?
Sure. And the next one, just drop it below as well.
Status extensibility. I think we already sort of talked about status. So
Yeah.
then we could probably just put extensibility.
You're right. Yeah.
On Feb 20th.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I guess we don't need to backfill the old ones.
Yeah.
Okay, so actually, what is going to be in the MVP? Probably put it with extensibility, maybe performance, or we can talk about it actually. But this will just be a kickoff conversation. I think we're going to have basically take it to the issues.
Yeah.
And then, so Rob, can you go back to the project board?
Yeah.
So I was hoping that at least some of the stuff in progress. So let's write this down. But my feeling is like for the meeting, whatever is in progress is something that we're actively working on, and we should try to resolve sort of in the meeting, and they're like small and just kind of get them done. Discussion items are everything that could potentially be a discussion. Inbox is like unsorted right now. Discussion items are like things that we need to discuss, and then we can figure out, you can order it, I think, within this sheet, this like little box, and then those will be pulled in. So like probably the meeting should be like, try to DQ as many of the in progress that we can just close, like they're small, and then move on to the discussion items.
Okay.
Unfortunately, this time we didn't groom the inbox that well, but for next time, I think we should basically groom the inbox plus the discussion items to kind of get it ordering for the agenda. And then we have an overall topic today on conformance. So that doesn't appear, I guess, yet as an issue. So we'll probably have 10, 15 minutes to discuss that as well. So I kind of want to start
real
off
quickly on the board. If it's unassigned, is that fair to say that it's available to work on by anyone?
Yeah, pretty much. Well, which one can you give an example? Because some of them are
I
like
don't
pretty
know.
concrete.
Would you consider in progress, like this has been discussed and ready to go to start working on?
Yeah, like basically, they're either PRs that just need feedback, or we need to discuss them, and some of them are just these small, like almost like maintenance things that we can just get done.
Okay, cool.
So let's go through the stuff in progress. So okay, so this one is basically adding, to integrate with some of the other consumers, they need to have basically protobuf generation. The thing I wanted to kind of close on here is two things. One of them is that when we write the API, to always put in the appropriate protobuf annotations. I know that there were some comments that like, hey, it's not needed. It's not kind of currently enforced by the CRD mechanisms. But given that you can basically kind of wire up the protobuf generation, and some people are actually hooking into this to consume the APIs, we might as well, as a nice thing, to just basically make it consistent, just add it. I don't think there's significant cost on the project to do so. But would like people's thoughts on this, because it seems like, why not? We just add some automation, add some tooling to make sure it's consistent, and then just have it there.
Sounds good to me. This would be like the equivalent of the make update thing in Kubernetes source.
Yeah, it would be like make verify. That kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. It's already got precedent in K/K, and although it may not be useful for every consumer of the API, it seems like it has potential to be useful in some cases, and it's very little overhead. So makes
Yeah, and
sense.
I think CRDs at some point will implement protobuf just for efficiency.
Yeah,
Quote me on that. I'm just assuming like that's going to be a natural progression.
yeah.
Although who knows? Okay, so if that's the case, can we put a comment on this that basically let's try to get this in a state that is mergeable. It has a verify, I think, associated with it. And then basically everyone just has to add those annotations.
Fine.
Should an issue be created for the tooling to verify that any
Yeah.
new?
Oh yeah, let's make sure it actually has the verify check. I thought.
I don't think so.
Okay.
So I think I pinged John directly, and he said he would need to add that. So what's required would be the make verify and then the generation. Usually the verify and the generation are basically like the same thing. So I'm assuming it's just going to tack onto this PR.
Sure. We'll go with that.
Okay. So, all right. Then the next one is change HTTP route hostname to be singular. I think there was some discussion on this. Daniel, is there any additional comments? We can open this up.
Yeah, it's been a little while since I've seen it, so I'm not sure if there's any additional comments that need to be addressed, or if I need to address any merge conflicts.
Let's go. Let's see. Unique. Singularize. Singular but not unique.
Yeah, I'm trying to decide if there's a way to disentangle those two issues and keep them separate, at least to make progress. Like, is it possible do we have to decide about the plurality and the unique constraint together?
Yeah, I think we should file an issue for uniqueness, and then I will comment on this saying like, basically we should bias towards just making it simple for now rather than trying to do like basically the multiplication and conciseness. I have to read through some of the comments. It seems like there's still a few interesting things that might end up being issues, but let's file one for the uniqueness to track it separately so that we can kind of make this more like a smaller problem. Because those two are like somewhat orthogonal potentially. it could be a list but not unique, or a list but unique.
Dan, do you mind filing that issue?
Sure.
Thanks.
Okay, I will follow up with that. The next one I think is like a small one, so we can open this one up. Okay.
And sorry, but if we could pause for a second before we move on. Does that? I think maybe I lost track of whether there actually was consensus on the topic of plurality.
So I'm going to continue discussion on that one. It
Okay.
seems like, and let's just do a careful read of the comments to make sure we covered things. My general take is like right now we should bias towards just making it really simple because we can always pluralize it later. And then pluralizing it even like in our current design like phase is actually like extremely simple. So that would be my bias, but let's look again at the issue.
Yep.
But definitely we should file a separate issue for the uniqueness just to kind of disentangle them.
Yeah, I agree. That would be useful. I'll take care of that now. Thanks.
Okay. So this one, I think, let's go down. So I feel like just open a PR against the dev guide and then we can continue the exact discussion there. Even if we resolve it here, we're going to have comments on that PR anyways. So let's just open a PR on the dev part and then dev conventions, and then we can talk about it there.
Cool.
I think James, you were on this one.
I don't think he's on. Oh,
I thought I saw him.
Yeah,
there he is.
Oh, there he is. Yeah, do you want to take that one up? Just reference this issue.
sorry, I was not listening at that point. What am I taking up?
So you filed this issue for just the naming convention. My recommendation is to just open a PR against the docs for the dev convention section. And then we can just finish the discussion there. Because even if we finish the discussion here, there's going to be another discussion on the PR.
Sure, I can send a PR. That's
Right. Okay. Then we can close this one.
You want to handle the types question as a separate issue? I can take that if so, or should we leave it as part of the same change with the naming?
So, yeah, that's an interesting one. So we can talk about it a bit. Does anyone have a ref? Okay, so there's just that one reference for the, I think in the API conventions. I think let's have a separate discussion because because we are somewhat using a very generic type, it's almost like object reference is the thing to do. But we can look through the object reference struct and try to figure out if a narrower set of fields makes sense. So yeah, let's open up an issue. Given that the advice is to make your own type, then maybe we should just have an issue that basically just looks at object reference and see if we can cut it down or like what parts would be different. We can make traction on that one.
All right, so I can file an issue or just go ahead and file a PR to kind of prove that out.
Yeah, like we could basically, your PR would have the struct definition, and then we can kind of compare it with object reference to see what potentially would be different. I think object reference has like UID and all that, basically the whole kitchen sink. So I'm assuming like it might not make sense.
Right. Well, it depends on the context. I mean, whether it's local or cross namespace. Yeah, I can file a PR to show what the idea is there.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go to the next one. Any more comments on that? Sorry, we're just trying to move through this.
Yeah, this one was discussed in Slack, and I think it had wide support.
Okay. All right, then I think Nick just needs to. So we should just say, hey, let's go for it. Can we put a comment there just to record this? Awesome.
Cool.
Okay, next one, add verified check. Can we just, is this PR okay to? Iterates through. Is this how we actually verify the ZZ files? There's no like existing script we can do?
I'm not sure. This seems like it is trying to be Kube Builder specific, but you would think there'd be something we could rely on here.
Yeah, like the usual thing is to run Kube Builder in a container, compare the file systems, and then just throw it away.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe we should follow up. I'll follow up with this. Verify. I'll just put that as a comment.
Would that and does that, trying to think of how to articulate this. There's kind of an overall, the underlying concern is portability and reproducibility, I guess.
Yeah,
Figure
like
out
if
how to,
Kube
like,
Builder
taxonomize
started
these.
generating other stuff, like we wouldn't even know.
Yeah.
You basically have to maintain this along with Kube Builder. Okay, let's see, add verify script. All right, that'll be a follow up. Okay. I think we can move on.
Right, that's the end of in progress as far as I can tell.
Can we scrape through the inbox? Are there any small things? Oh, add custom labels for user stories. I think we can resolve that one.
Okay.
So can we put it in progress, by the way?
Sure
Just
thing.
to,
Oh, I don't have access for that.
oh, really? Seriously? Okay. I thought, you know, I should.
Assuming I should be able to drag and drop.
Yeah, maybe the group doesn't have it. That might be, see, I never tried out the GitHub projects. So, okay. Can you open it up, Rob?
Yep, here it is.
So yeah, what are the thoughts on this? I think it makes sense. And since we can maintain it automatically, then let's just get it done.
Yeah, this looks helpful.
Okay, I'll go ahead and file a PR against the labels thing somewhere.
Okay, and then after you do that, just ping on Slack and we can basically bulk edit the kind feature to user stories.
There is I think the way we have this repo set up, it automatically adds kind feature. Is that something that you want to keep or?
That's in the issue template. So we just need to change that.
Yes.
The thing is, the existing stuff, we should change the kind user story.
Yep.
Oh, so the other one was, I think, was it you, James, that you had a conversation about releasing binaries? Or am I thinking of a different thing?
You're probably thinking of the ingress conformance.
Oh, okay, all right.
So I'm poking at that. Basically, what I'm trying to get from ingress conformance is a binary that I can run as part of the Contour CI pipeline.
Right. Yeah, so I guess this is slightly different. The other one is that basically for conformance and binaries created here, we need an image repository. I think this one is already being worked on. Sorry, Rob, did you see I added moved some stuff around on the board?
Yeah, that's great. Were you talking about conformance? Which one did you want to?
Create image repository for built images.
Oh, this one. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, I think we need this for conformance as well. In the conformance, there's a test image which should be published to is SIG repo. So maybe we could use the same. Maybe we could use this repo for conformance as well.
Yeah, so I think someone is already in. Is it Antonio? Let me see.
I started poking at this, Alex here.
Okay.
And yeah, but we have another issue in the ingress conformance repo.
Do you know if the repo has to match one-to-one with the project or no?
I don't think it does, but I
Okay.
just started looking, so I have very little information.
All right. Can you, if you don't mind, if you're looking at it for the conformance, then maybe you can also take a look at this.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think coordinate with Antonio. He might have already made progress here, so just ping him.
Perfect.
All right. So since we're on the topic of conformance, let's talk about conformance. So we have the ingress conformance repo, which is for the GA. And I see, thanks guys, I see lots of activity on that, so that's awesome. One of the things that I was looking at it occurred to me, like, right now, Kubernetes runs the conformance using, I think, SonarBuoy. Is that right?
SonarBuoy is a wrapper. I think it just runs the the conformance for Kubernetes is part of the E2E suite, I think.
Right.
And SonarBuoy is just a generalized run a thing and collect results kind of machinery.
I see. So what would be nice is if we can be like compatible with the sort of general E2E style framework. It's not like it is, you know, there's lots of opinions on what kind of E2E framework, whether we use the one that's checked into the ingress conformance or just a skeletal version of the Kubernetes main one. But we basically need to decide on which one to make progress on adding an initial test conformance framework. And then ideally that thing could be plumbed into something that consumes the output of what comes from Kubernetes conformance. Basically it has output like the same format in some sense.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings about this. I mean, I think there's lots of end-to-end testing approaches from different projects. It's possible to split out the Kubernetes E2E. It's kind of structured. There is a framework package, so it is at least partly structured for other people to use. It is kind of a lot more complex than the framework Alex has here, and I'm not a huge fan of Ginkgo, but
Oh yeah, me neither.
I mean, but I guess I don't have I don't have strong objections to it, but I think what Alex has done here is also perfectly workable and has the virtue of being like way simpler.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think one thing that would be great is if someone wants to take up kind of sketching out how they're going to lay it out for this project and sort of how it might interoperate with the other pieces of the Kubernetes ecosystem that run conformance. I'm assuming it's not going to be significantly like I'm assuming it's actually going to be pretty straightforward, but like, and it's just a matter of choosing something that is simple. And then we can basically tweak the format to kind of plug into the rest of it. But if anyone wants to kind of pick this up.
I think we should just, at the moment, it feels like we should have an issue to cover that concern. Someone needs just an issue to cover picking it up and figuring out how this conformance would interact with the larger conformance approach.
Yeah, so Rob, maybe we can file an issue and then link it to number 20
Okay.
And then let's put a help wanted here. So I think this is something that can be pretty independently worked on.
Yeah. Yeah, I had referenced some work already that's happening on something that is basically what you described as a shell of E2E testing that could potentially be used to do conformance testing. But I think it needs more discussion, probably in a separate issue, as to how we do that. So yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, let me, I'm going to take some notes to basically add this. Let's see, initial conformance. We'll just update it with the conversation we just had.
Okay.
As to, and then, you know, not just one person can work on this, but ideally at least one person. So if you're interested on this front, then can pick this one up.
Yeah.
All right. There was this one that was different branch for generated docs. I know this is like a huge pain right now. I don't know if anyone wants, that one's the easy one to take. This is number 34 as well.
Oh.
Oops. Uh-oh, are we getting kicked out?
This is it. Yep.
Really? Oh, shoot. Hey, Rob. So we have to leave,
Sure.
but
We can listen in.
yeah, we can listen in. And actually, Rob, can you, you'll probably have to take over for a little bit.
Sure, sure.
So that's kind of we've been focused mostly on sort of the smaller issues right now, and conformance. Actually, let's talk about conformance. Give me 1 second. Let's see where we can go. Okay.
Yeah, I'll just briefly, this different branch for generated drop docs, I'm sure would save all of us a headache, because right now, and anytime a PR merges, we all have to rebase any existing PR. So I'm fully on board with anything that can avoid that, and would appreciate any volunteer that wants to take it on.
Can you talk about, like, I think I can probably do this.
Yeah.
Can you expand more on what the actual problem is here? And
Okay, so right
I fully
now,
understand.
yeah, good question. So right now what we do is we have docs on master that need to be generated anytime you change anything related to docs. So what happens, as an example, I'm sure we can find one PR that is a couple PRs that are conflicting based solely on docs. Actually, no, this one's probably conflicting on other things. Okay. Usually what happens is when anyone merges something, again, the docs change, including timestamps for every single docs file. So that means whatever you have, even if you haven't touched much of docs, will likely be out of date, because we're updating the documentation a lot. So if you could move docs to a different branch that just didn't result in so many conflicting PRs, that would be really cool. I think, because right now our documentation is served from a GitHub site, basically. And I know you can choose to just serve it from a different branch instead of serving it from master in a specific directory. And if we could do that, we could kind of offload all this conflicting work.
Okay. And what do we use to generate the docs currently?
It is, I did not actually set this up, but it's make docs, which is defined here. Interesting. Guess we have a make docs image. Yes, I was not the person behind this, but it looks like it would be fairly straightforward to just move this to run on a specific branch, or to separate this somehow. I'm not sure on the specifics.
I think I can help on this one. I have some experience for the LB ingress controller docs, which is put in another branch and served in GitHub page.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, great. Can you guys hear us? We just moved into a supposedly quiet area, so we'll be a little bit quiet.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about conformance. So what do we want to get out of conformance? I think we have this definition of some base functionality that should be portable, and then there's some extended functionality that if you implement it should be portable, and then finally there's the rest, which is to each provider. It seems like we should reflect this in the conformance, and I would ideally we would also write the spec in a way that makes each of these sections obvious. I think in the last session we discussed how to annotate the code with the different tags, but for features that go across multiple fields and et cetera, and annotations like it, that might not be possible. So what do you guys think about that as a general sort of thing that a conformance test should reveal, is whether or not something is base functional, and then have for each feature a extended portability, but basically distinguished by section. And then, of course, you can use the conformance test for your own stuff, but that wouldn't be part of the thing that's checked into this OSS repo.
Yeah, I like this idea, and especially of having multiple levels of conformance, if you will. Like such and such features would, not implementing it or not supporting them should make you fail the conformance, but other features might just be reported as supported to some level or whatnot, so that we could get some useful information and not only a pass-fail flag.
Right. Okay. So I think given that, let's start describing some of this. I think I'll take the action item to sort of take this and kind of put a section in the online docs as to sort of how we like to structure it. But some of this will also feed back into how to structure the actual test conformance framework, because these kind of annotations need to appear in the code in some form.
One thing we already ran into with the test conformance framework is the need for tests to correspond to a version of the API. So we have, V1 alpha, beta 1, and we have V1 and we have V2 kind of tests, which are all going to be different.
Right. So yeah, I'm not a super fan of how the tags are done right now with all the kind of inlining a bracketed thingy into the name, but we should be able to figure out some mechanism that accomplishes this for our test framework. I guess what I'm getting at is these are requirements for the test framework, so we should update this issue with it.
So, I mean, we do have the test framework that Alex committed to the repo. So what you're talking about is new requirements and whether we should move to a different framework.
Right. The other thing, does anyone else have other requirements that they think should go into the conformance framework?
This may be obvious already, but it seems like there is a lot of overlap between ingress controller conformance and service APIs conformance. So if there were a way to have a single set of conformance tests that indicated if a controller was conformant with ingress APIs, with service APIs, and which versions you could test against, it seems like it would be nice, but I don't want. Yeah.
That's an interesting thing. Also, I think at the core of that, though, would just be to share the code.
Yeah.
So we could probably vendor in the ingress conformance into here, if not actually have it both. The thing is, like for the ingress, if we wanted to mix them, this might be too unstable for that. I would be a little bit concerned about like mixing up the GA oriented stuff with like something that is going to change on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Just as long as there's enough shared base, and as long as they're not two completely different things and two completely different workflows, having some kind of consistency between the two.
This is what I was getting at when I said we need to figure out how to support multiple versions of the API.
Yeah.
Okay, I've taken that down as a requirement. I'll update this issue. Probably this will be, I'm thinking after we have the discussion on this issue, someone's going to create a docs PR to just capture all the things. And then we can start work on sort of basically implementing it. I know that at least for the current like gateway class stuff, we could even start writing tests against it if we wanted to. Any other thoughts on how to structure the conformance? Or what requirements do you think you need from the conformance tests? Anyone? Okay, so given all the notes, we'll make sure they reflect on the website. Also, the rest of the stuff also needs to be updated. I think we're falling a little bit behind, so we'll take some time this week to kind of get everything back in sync, get all the videos online, and we can go back to one of the topics since we have a little bit of extra time. Oh yeah, by the way, are we scheduling something for KubeCon EU to meet up?
Yes, we have not scheduled it yet. But
Okay.
we will.
Yeah, so if I'm going to send out an email, and please respond so we can make sure that it works with everyone's schedules. If you are going to KubeCon EU 2020, we should definitely schedule like an in-person design session. I think that'll be really valuable. I know that the last one, we like had some pretty good discussions. So that will happen. KubeCon. All right, so let's see. So the raw extensions, I'm looking at that, just jumping ahead a little bit.
Is it in progress?
It's in the discussion items. Yeah, I'm wondering, James, if you had any progress on that. Sorry, at the very top.
Oh,
No, I haven't looked at it.
Do you know where we would, how we would figure this one out?
I envisaged it. So I think what I had in mind was something more like we would put it on the agenda as a discussion item, and we would just internally get consensus on what people thought was the right thing.
I think it would help since this is going to come probably in the next probably 2 sessions from now, is to sort of sketch out what this would look like. Okay, that's what I said down here. Let's see, we can keep going. Maybe this was already answered. Okay, yeah, because this is one of the things that right now we have a lot of object references, but if we replaced it with raw extensions, like what would that mean and what would that look like?
Yeah, I suppose I should take an action to flip the API over to raw extensions and do a PR so people can see what that would look like.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned up there that cluster API ran into some, or they at least tried it.
Yeah, cluster API tried it and
Are moving away from it, or they like it?
No, they decided they didn't like it.
I see. Yeah, we should investigate that.
And the main things they didn't like it is that you kind of lose a lot of the built-in machinery when you do raw extensions. So you just end up hand coding things like field validation and all that sort of stuff.
Oh yeah, right. Okay. So I think, yeah, it would be good to at least sketch it out and then lay these all out in one place so people can look at it. All right, let's go back to the board. So any more thoughts on better modeling of a virtual host? I think this is one of the big topics. Let's see, example for config, route admission policy. Okay, we'll just wait for this one to accumulate more conversations. So one other one that came up pretty early, sorry, go ahead. Okay, we're almost out of time, but one of the ones that came up pretty early is this notion of route selection. I want to kind of highlight that one because I think we can make progress on it. Selector-based route binding. So I know, Daniel, you raised this, and I think we've even discussed this at the last KubeCon. But what are people's feelings on this? It seems natural, but I kind of wanted to understand what potential complexity would come from this. Because you can clearly take any direct reference and kind of make it more fancy, but then it has potentially has a cost.
Yeah, I think what you gain is flexibility and ease of adding routes, and what you lose is the ease of locking things down as an administrator. You know, if anyone can create a route, then they could create a route for any gateway, potentially, if it's using label selectives, because it's harder to prevent a certain label from being used. You can use namespaces and a variety of things, but you have a little bit less control.
Yeah, wondering if it's necessary to be more sort of like force people into safer, what's it? Basically forcing people into safer defaults, like you always have to say it's namespace bound, or to give that to the user and then rely on other mechanisms to kind of make it safe.
I think this is something that Istio struggled with a lot as well. People were really annoyed that they had to manually specify every single thing.
And that was the reference that I took when creating this issue in PR.
I see. What is this? Let's see. Label selector, gateway. I mean, this definitely does resonate with me.
I mean, it does feel like something that follows more Kubernetes native patterns. I'm very used to using selectors for all the things. It just depends on how much we care about the potential to lock things down just that extra bit further.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was going to say, if you can pause right there with the screen, because the Howard John comment, Micaiah, I think you had some questions about this comment when we were kind of chatting earlier today, right, Micaiah?
Yeah, the question or the statement that routes may select objects other than just HTTP route or TCP route. And this is the routes field inside the gateway resource. That's very surprising to me that the gateway might be selecting things that aren't routes. So can we nail that down? The question is, does the gateway controller know the universe of kinds that it is selecting? Or are we saying that the gateway routes can specify any kind of arbitrary resource?
So as sketched, we propose that there's a difference between the set that's basically the portable core set, which will be specified in this API. The question, I think, would be, could there be anything outside of this that, say, a third party could enable with gateway? That is something that we need to discuss. So let's file an issue with that. clearly there's an advantage, right? Like you could have my HTTP route, but it's just very confusing for the user, and it may present a problem in terms of like understandability if suddenly everyone has their own route object. And sort of, I would be concerned that it would be an escape hatch to like not make people converge and make a good HTTP route.
The part that confuses me is that, okay, say you define your custom my route type kind. Well, that's going to be specific to your gateway controller, right? So your gateway controller implementation will know about that kind, and it can do a list filtered by provided route selector. So unless we're saying you can provide an arbitrary kind that isn't defined as part of the gateway controller implementation, I'm not sure what I'm missing here.
It's more a question about how we want to evolve it. Let's say you can always expand it, but if you keep it smaller, then you're right, it will work, I guess. And then people will know it's not portable. The trade-off, I think, is that, Howard has a comment here on chat. Even if you know all types, normally in Kubernetes, you're selecting a single object. I don't know of any cases where selecting look at multiple kinds. Well, you can do multiple kinds in a loop.
Sure, you can have 2, 3, 4 informers, one informer for TCP route, one for HTTP route, and then another for your custom. And on each one, specify the selector or use the label selectors, apply it to the list for that kind.
Yeah, like I see the push and pull here from a API. Like, we should endeavor to make the standard types sort of as expressive as we can make them within reason, and supporting custom types. I think this needs to be discussed.
We do already have a concept of core features of an API and optional extensions. And if we considered HTTP route, TCP route, the core features that every implementation needs to support, I don't know that we lose too much by allowing implementations to support additional kinds of routes that they create as custom resources or something like that. But yeah, it's probably worth it further discussion.
Okay, so who wants to take that and file that issue to discuss it? I would like to discuss that independent of using selection versus direct, because I think they are slightly different aspects of this. But I think we can make progress on this one, the using of selection.
Yeah, Micaiah, do you mind opening up that issue and linking maybe to this specific comment from John?
I can do that. Well, I guess the question now is this a question for service APIs, or is this a question, the broader API conventions, whatever SIG that would be, about having a selector or a label, specifying a label selector that can apply to multiple kinds? I'll start with the service APIs issue and we can go from there. Is that good?
Yeah, that sounds fine. I think as with most things, like it's a push and pull. Like if we have a good use case here, then it's hard for API machinery or to argue like overall that there's no good use case, right?
Cool.
Okay, I think we're 5 minutes over time. So thanks everyone for showing up. I think our AI for next week is to clean up all of the project boards and update all the docs. They're getting a little stale. But thanks for showing up today.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Bye.
Why does people want